Nathan Schaefer, thank you so much for joining me here today on Checker Pro Radio. It's so great to have you here as our HVAC expert on the show.
Hey, great to be here. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so questions come in about energy bills, and we keep hearing about that. That's one of the pain points for many of our listeners and viewers. The cost to operate their home in the summertime, especially this summer, they can be high, and of course, in the winter time to heat the house, it can be high. So I guess it goes up, maybe a little break, then up and break, and then back again. Um, why are they so high? What's happening to the heating and the air conditioning systems?
Yeah, great question, and could be multiple different things, really. But I think most commonly, when I'll simplify, right? Let's go with the most common things and the simplest things, maybe to control and keep in mind first, and that's going to be just overall condition of the system, and that comes down to how well are we maintaining that system. So. Things like our air filters clean, especially during peak times, like right now. As we're recording the show, it's in July, and it's extremely hot. Systems are taxed out, so they're going to need every bit of help they can get to get through the day with that clean filter. The system's able to breathe and operate properly. But then it comes down to also too just the overall cleanness of the coils and of the blower wheel. It comes down to how well is the duct system sealed. A lot of duct systems across the United States are very, very leaky. And if we're leaking all that air that we're trying to, create and put into the home, if it's going into the attics or the crawl spaces, that can be a huge loss. So not only hurt your comfort, but also too cause the system to run more and therefore affecting the utility bill. So, and then just of course overall performance of the system. Are things adjusted correctly? Do we have the proper refrigerant levels? Do we have, is everything set and dialed in correctly? So, several different ways or things that it could be, I guess. But maintenance is going to probably be maintenance and air leakage are going to be probably the two most common things, or simplest things, I should say.
Air filters, we keep hearing about those need to be changed out on a regular basis. They need to be clean. I've lived in extreme places in North America. I've
Mhm.
I've lived in really cold places where we needed a lot of heat, and I've lived in really hot places where we needed more air conditioning. And I've never really thought about this, so I'm going to ask you, the expert, because um, where you guys are, Schaefer, in Ohio, it's hot and it's cold. Air filters, do they get more gunked up in the summertime or the wintertime, or does it not matter?
I wouldn't say they get necessarily more gunked up one way or the other. Typically, most houses, I mean, there are some conditions that could tie into that. Obviously, in the summertime, humidity levels are higher. And
Mm,
so, if we're not maintaining humidity in the house, as you can imagine, things and particulates are going to cling together, maybe faster and easier, and they're going to ball up on that filter faster. Um, However, for the most part, most people find that it's usually an average set amount of runtime, that they're changing that filter as far as trying to monitor anyways. I guess probably to get technical and scientific, there are times it probably would because of humidity levels in the home being more humid or less. But all in all, as far as to be concerned about it, you're going to be pretty consistent, and it's going to be based off of that runtime. So anywhere from 1 month to 6 months is most common, depending on the type of filter that you're using.
I'm glad you brought up humidity because there's a big difference. What's great about our air conditioning systems is it pulls the humidity out, but
Hmm.
it's nothing like the heating system. That burns it out. So we find in our area that in the winter time, when we have the heat going on a regular basis, it really does get dry. So therefore, the air is drier. So I'd imagine that drier air going through the filter is different than that moist air in the summertime.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why, a lot of people too this time of year, the AC is sized properly depending on how airtight the home is, and or infiltrations and ductwork and different things. We can still have high humidity issues in the home, which then ties into the comfort and ties into the efficiencies and ties into the overall health of the home, as well as the family. So a lot of times, a lot of clients will still have whole home high capacity dehumidifiers in place to
Mm.
help run alongside that AC. So maybe they're maintaining temperature, but it just still feels sticky. Doors and things are still swelling and not closing, just all kinds of little things that you start to notice. And that just comes down to relative humidity. So it comes down to making sure our system is properly sized, it's clean, it's operating properly. We're keeping operating costs we want to be at, but then also too, there's other ways that we can take and help and increase the overall efficiency as well as the comfort. And dehumidifiers is just another one of those options.
Nathan, I'm not an HVAC expert like you, but I know enough to get myself in trouble. I would imagine if someone who's listening to and or watching us right now has an issue with their air conditioning system not pulling the humidity out, it's probably a mismatch somewhere. I firmly believe that a properly sized and maintained air conditioning system should bring comfortable humidity levels. So it might be cycling off too soon. So it cools, but it's not cycling long enough to pull the humidity out. I have a humidistat in my home that I use, and if it's over 50, and I'm tough. If it's over 50%, I want to know what's going on. And 50% isn't bad. That's probably a pretty good number. I'm
Mhm.
looking for in my home 47, no more than 55, even though it's probably somewhat acceptable. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the overall relative humidity reading in the house makes all the difference in the way that it feels,
Mm.
as well as we mentioned a moment ago, health too. So if you start looking at charts as far as what can grow, whether it be spiders and bugs and microbial growth and all these different things in the home, if you can keep it in a range like you were just mentioning, there's things above and below the 50%. But as a rule of thumb, as an average, yeah, below that 50, ideally year round, that 40 to 50 is going to be the most common, most comfortable, and the most healthiest. That is ideal. When you start finding issues when it's not at that, oftentimes one of those things contributing to that, yes, is missized or mismatched equipment. And so, for example, if the AC, some people say, "Hey, bigger is better," and if they go with a bigger one, well, that's not always the best case, right? Because if it's bigger, now it's short cycling and it's just kicking on and off, kicking on and off, kicking on and off, which drives utilities up, doesn't pull humidity out, and so yeah, humidity is huge when we talk about, comfort and, overall health and quality of the air inside the home.
Absolutely, on those really hot and humid days that we have, the air conditioning system is more than a cooling system. It is a dehumidifier
Mhm.
for the whole house if you have a whole house system, and I think it's important. Thank you so much, Nathan, as always, for joining me today here on the program, answering these questions for our listeners.
My pleasure, Jim. Good to see you.